All right, buckle up because we're diving deep into the Boeing Machinists strike. This thing's got more moving parts than a 747 engine, and we're here to break it all down. We've been poring over the latest news, even dug into some Wikipedia rabbit holes, all to figure out what's really going on behind the scenes.
And the thing is, this isn't just some local labor dispute. This standoff could have ripple effects throughout the entire airline industry, potentially even affecting your next vacation.
Oh, no, not vacation delays, please. Anything but that. Yeah. Okay, so rewind back to September 13th, 2024.
Mm.
Imagine this. Over 33,000 Boeing machinists, most of them based in Seattle, they decide to down tools and walk off the job.
And we have to emphasize, this is not just some minor hiccup, you see. This is their first strike since way back in 2008, so it's a pretty major historical event.
Wow, 2008, that's a long time ago. So this is serious business then.
Well,
What was
yeah.
the final straw? What actually pushed them over the edge?
Well, to understand that, we need to go back a bit further. See, the union rejected a contract offer from Boeing, and here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't just some lowball offer. We're talking a hefty 25% pay raise over 4 years.
25%. I mean, I'd be over the moon with a raise like that, so what was the catch? Why walk away from that kind of money?
Well, it seems like the union saw it for what it was, perhaps. Sure, the pay raise sounded great on paper, but they felt like it didn't address some of their deeper concerns. Things like job security, retirement benefits, the things that really keep you up at night.
So it wasn't just about the money, it was about the whole package deal. And it wasn't just a few disgruntled employees either, right? I was reading on Wikipedia that a whopping 94.6% voted against the contract, and something like 96% were prepared to strike. That's essentially everyone.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's practically a unanimous decision right there. It shows just how strongly they felt about their demands, willing to sacrifice even those immediate pay raises to fight for what they believed in. And this brings us to the real heart of the issue, which is the strike's ripple effects.
Because this isn't just some symbolic protest, right? This is having real-world consequences.
Oh, absolutely. You see, Boeing, they rely on these highly skilled workers to actually build their planes. And with production lines grinding to a halt, especially for their big earners, the 737s, 777s, and 767, the entire airline industry is feeling the heat.
So we could be talking about potential delivery delays, fewer flights available, and those dreaded price hikes. Our inner travel enthusiast is starting to panic a little bit.
It's a very real possibility, and let's not forget about the financial fallout here. Remember, Boeing's been down this road before, right? Their 2008 strike, that cost them an estimated, get this, $3 billion. And considering inflation and the fact that their production scale is even bigger now, this time around, it could be even more painful. They must be feeling the pressure.
$3 billion, that's just mind-boggling. So,
Yeah.
they're sitting there thinking, how do we avoid a repeat of that financial disaster?
Exactly. And with every passing day, with the strike dragging on, that pressure just keeps building, right? Boeing's bleeding money. The workers are going without paychecks. It's like a high-stakes game of chicken. Nobody wants to be the first to back down.
But then it seems like somebody slammed on the brakes around October 8th. After almost a month, negotiations just completely stalled, didn't they?
Total deadlock, yeah. And the language from both sides became a lot more, shall we say, pointed.
Yeah, there was that quote from Boeing's commercial airplanes president in the Wikipedia article that really stuck out to me. He called the union's demands, and I quote, non-negotiable and far in excess. What does that even mean in this context? Is that just standard negotiation jargon, or were they throwing down the gauntlet?
I think it's safe to say they were digging their heels in.
And it's not like it was all sunshine and roses before that either. Remember that whole thing about Boeing suddenly withdrawing their pay raise offer?
Oh, yeah, that was a strange one. 1 minute, they're offering a 30% raise, almost a third more money, and the next, poof, gone, off the table completely. What could have caused such a drastic turnaround? It makes you wonder.
It really does. It's like they went from let's make a deal to take or leave it and then just fought left.
Well, one article I read mentioned some pretty serious financial strain on Boeing's end. Apparently, their S&P Global rating status was in danger of being downgraded all the way to junk status.
Junk status. Okay, that sounds bad, even to my untrained ears. Can you break that down for those of us who don't speak fluent Wall Street? What does that actually mean for a company like Boeing?
Imagine trying to get a loan, but you've got a really bad credit score, right? That's basically what a junk status rating is, but for a giant corporation like Boeing. Basically, it means that borrowing money becomes way more expensive, which just puts an even bigger squeeze on their already strained finances. It's a massive red flag for investors and could cause their stock price to plummet even further.
Ouch. Yeah, that's not good. So pulling that offer was probably a desperate attempt to regain some control, right? Like, look, we're hemorrhaging cash over here. Got to stop the bleeding somehow.
It certainly seems that way, yeah. But you can imagine how well that went over with the union. Talk about adding fuel to an already raging fire.
And just to make things even more heated, Boeing decided to file that unfair labor practice charge against the union on October 10th.
And they didn't file it with just anyone. We're talking the National Labor Relations Board accusing the union of not bargaining in good faith. Let me tell you, in the world of labor relations, that is a very serious accusation. Throws a whole other wrench in the works.
It's like this whole thing escalated from a workplace dispute into a full-blown courtroom drama.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? What are the potential endings to this whole saga, and what could they mean for, well, everyone?
Honestly, it's a real nail-biter. This is uncharted territory. We can, however, map out some potential scenarios. Best case scenario, both sides decide to swallow their pride, they go back to the negotiating table, and somehow they manage to hammer out a deal that actually works for everyone.
Okay, so the fairy tale ending where everyone wins. In reality, what would that look like? What would actually need to happen?
Compromise, compromise, compromise. The union might have to soften their stance on certain demands, while Boeing might need to really dig deep to address some of the workers' concerns about their pay, benefits, and overall working conditions. Finding that sweet spot is key, where both sides feel like they've actually gained something, even if it's not everything they initially wanted.
That sounds great in theory, but after all this back and forth, all the tension, can they really find common ground after all this has happened?
Honestly, it's a long shot. The trust between them has been pretty much shattered, and rebuilding that takes a lot of time and effort, neither of which they have a lot of right now. A less ideal outcome, but to be honest, a more likely one, is that we see a long and drawn-out stalemate.
So this thing could drag on for weeks, maybe even months.
It's definitely a possibility. Neither side seems willing to back down, and the longer it goes on, the more everybody involved loses. Boeing's losing money every minute that production is at a standstill, while the workers, they're dipping into their savings, facing those really tough financial decisions.
Yeah, talk about a lose-lose situation. And I imagine the longer it drags on, the more those ripple effects we talked about earlier will really start to impact the economy.
Oh, absolutely. Just think about it. Delayed deliveries, that means frustrated airlines, which could easily translate to higher ticket prices for consumers, fewer flights available, and it could even lead to some routes being scrapped entirely. And that's not even mentioning the knock-on effect on Boeing's suppliers and all the other businesses that depend on them. A strike this big, if it drags on long enough, could send shockwaves through multiple industries.
Okay, yeah, now I'm starting to really worry about my next vacation. A prolonged stalemate is definitely a worst-case scenario. Are there any other possibilities we haven't considered yet?
Well, there's always the wild card government intervention.
You mean like a full-on presidential intervention? Air Force One touches down at Boeing HQ, everyone shakes hands, and just like that, problem solved.
Well, I think it's a little more complicated than that. However, yes, the government might start to feel the pressure to step in, especially if the economic fallout from this strike really starts to hit hard. It's not unprecedented. It's definitely happened before in other high-profile strikes. But even with the best mediators in the world, there's still no guarantee of a solution that everyone can live with.
So much up in the air right now, feels like trying to predict the weather in a hurricane. This strike, it could really go any which way.
Absolutely, and it goes way beyond just this one company, you know? It really makes you think about the bigger picture here, the future of labor itself, particularly in fields like aerospace, where automation is, well, it's changing everything.
It's true. It's like watching this tug-of-war play out between the old ways and the new. Traditional labor, trying to hold on in this rapidly changing world of work.
Exactly. On the one hand, you've got Boeing, a company that has to stay ahead of the curve to survive. They need to be competitive, and automation is often the key to that.
Sure, cutting costs, making things more efficient, all the stuff that keeps a company profitable.
Right. But then on the other side, you've got the workers. They're understandably worried about what the future holds for them, their jobs, their livelihoods. Unions have always been their voice, but in this new landscape, are they starting to lose some of their power?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? So this Boeing strike, as significant as it is on its own, could also be a sign of things to come in other industries as well. We're witnessing a real clash here. between the way things have always been done and this rapidly evolving future of work.
It's a defining moment, for sure, and the way this all plays out could have implications far beyond just Boeing. Will the government end up stepping in? How will businesses need to adapt? And perhaps most importantly, what happens to the workers caught in the middle of it all?
It's certainly a lot to unpack, that's for sure. One thing's for certain, though, we'll be here watching this story closely, every twist and turn. It's a real-time case study playing out right in front of our eyes with massive consequences for just about everyone involved.
It's a powerful reminder that even in our increasingly automated world, people still hold the power. The fight for fair wages, for safe and dignified working conditions, it's far from over.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. As technology continues to advance, as the very nature of work itself continues to transform right before our eyes, how do we make sure that workers' rights are protected? How do we build a future where everyone benefits from these advancements, not just the people signing the paychecks? It's a question worth thinking about, one that'll shape the future of work for generations to come.
It certainly will. And who knows, the answers might just come from the most unexpected places as we continue to navigate this ever-changing world.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Catch you next time.